Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Novels and Nightcaps, the podcast where we read, drink, and ramble. My name is Nor,
And I'm Gabe.
and this episode we are diving into the dazzling world of Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. As always, we're going to spend the first 15 minutes or so giving a brief, spoiler-free overview of the book and our general impressions before we actually dive into full spoilers for the rest of the episode. But, as always, before we get started, what are you drinking, Gabe?
So, since one of the main characters goes by the name Spirit, I just figured it makes the most sense to drink something that is, well, a spirit. So I just have some bourbon. I didn't measure, and I may have over poured significantly. So it's quite a lot of bourbon, but it's going to be really delicious. And I was telling Nor earlier, I'm not going to get too into detail, but you can fill in the gaps. I had a special clear liquid that may or may not have been attained completely legally, and it was going to be a really exciting time, but better heads prevailed, aka my wife told me not to drink such things on the internet, and I said, okay, that makes sense. So instead, we're drinking bourbon. Nor, what are you drinking?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't do anything illegal, because,
Yeah,
the law.
legal things are wrong. Yeah, legal
Yeah,
things are wrong.
and the law is everything here. But
The law is here on this podcast, we've gone to show the law is everything.
yeah, you have to follow it to the T.
I feel like most of our episodes is us talking about the problems with like laws and politics and governments, and that's okay. That's okay. Anyways,
Yeah,
what are you drinking?
right. So today I made myself an Americano, which has Campari, sweet vermouth, and sparkling water. And I
So
also
not the like coffee Americano.
no.
Okay.
The cocktail Americano, which I believe is a separate thing.
Yeah, it is.
Because it doesn't have coffee. But I also overshot my measurements, and we'll see if I actually got something that I can actually drink without wanting to puke.
Yeah, let's give it a taste. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, no, I think I got it right. Honestly, I'm
Let's
proud of myself.
go. Let's go.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, for a second I was like, dude, it's literally, I mean, we usually record this in the evening, but right now it's actually night. And so I, for a second, didn't know if you just made yourself a cup of coffee for your nighttime podcast. And I was like, all right, I mean, teach your own. Gotta do what you gotta do.
You
It's
got to
okay.
do what you got to do.
Man, so we're talking about Elantris. So last week, if you didn't tune in, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, we read Red Rising, which was a book that I had read. I'd read the saga, loved it, and forced Nor to read it. This is a bit of the reverse. Nor, you had already read Elantris a while ago, and it was kind of a trade-off. I made you read Red Rising, which you haven't checked out the review. Go check it out. And then you made me read Elantris. And I did. I read it. It was quite good, and I'm excited to talk about it today. I mean, I think it's very underrated. It's Brandon Sanderson's first ever novel. I guess that's probably the best place to start. It's the beginning of the Cosmere to an extent. And I don't know to what level would be spoiler-free territory on giving a synopsis of this book, because I knew nothing going in. I knew zero about the book, and I would suggest that's probably the best way to go into it because of how unique some of the world building is that you would come to expect from Brandon Sanderson. But here you don't really need anything going in. The world is very distinct, and he builds a lot of it in one book, and it's, I don't even know. Nor, so how would you give, as much as you can, a spoiler-free synopsis of this? Because from the get-go, things are happening and things are changing away from what I would call the status quo for our main characters, our central characters.
Right. So when I picked up this book, the only thing I knew about it, aside from it being Sanderson's first book, or first published book, I believe it was his sixth novel that he actually wrote. The only thing I knew about it was that it was about a city with a curse and a prince who suddenly wakes up with said curse. And so he's exiled to the city full of essentially ghouls, right? That's the only thing I knew about it. but it's a lot more than that. That's just the initial premise, and you get that in the first, like, 3 pages, I believe. I believe right off the bat,
Yeah.
it all starts with this prince waking up with a curse and joining Elantris and its people. And so it's really a book about this prince, refusing to accept his fate as one of the fallen, essentially. Someone afflicted with a curse known as the Shroud, I believe. It's
Shaod.
the Shade, yeah. Um, which is essentially a metaphor for depression, but we'll get into that later. Um, and he refuses to, essentially rot away with the rest of the Elantrians, and he decides to help the city get back up and start, living again, even though their hearts literally stop beating. Like, their bodies essentially die, but the people are still alive. That's the curse of Elantris. And Elantris used to be this beautiful, magnificent city, dazzling with light, essentially a city of godlike people, people who were gifted, the power of Elantris. These were like godlike deities to this world. And then one day, everything changed. All these people started to wither away, and Elantris sort of fell. And that's just the initial premise of the book, but
Yeah,
there's a whole
that's
lot
the
more.
prologue. Yeah, that's literally the prologue, and then the first 3 sentences of chapter 1, right? I think that's really good. We have 3 central characters, 3 perspective characters. You have Raiden, who's this prince, right? You have, I think, Serene. You have her, who is supposed to be marrying Raiden, and shows up, and things unfold. And then Hrathen. Hrathen is kind of like a warrior priest of sorts who's come to convert a group of people. And those are our 3 central characters. And they all kind of occupy different places, yet there's a lot of interaction between them. It's not like Stormlight Archives where characters are separated for long periods of time. This is a single book that is, for the most part, fully self-contained. Like, there's an opportunity for it to expand. Like, when I finished it, I thought there might be a sequel, and I'm not sure if he's planning on doing one eventually, but it seemed like that could have been an opportunity. But it's still very much a self-contained story. It's a good time. It's not something that I walked away from with my mind blown, yet I also absolutely did not regret it. It's Brandon Sanderson. It's obviously his first published books. There are some rough edges, yet at the same time, you can see every aspect that makes him as an author himself. I mean, it's the same stuff you get in later books, only it's kind of it feels a little bit more novel for some reason. I don't mean that because it's a book. I feel like it feels a little fresh, and I don't know exactly why, but there's a lot of really interesting aspects here that feel kind of risky on some ends, but then also far too safe on others. That's kind of how I would characterize the book. Some ends are extremely interesting and new, and then others are not surprising and quite simple, to be frank. Regardless, if you like Brandon Sanderson, give this a read. If you like fantasy, give this a read. If you're wanting something just sweet and comforting to an extent, give this a read. Nor would you agree on that? Is that your general assertion on the novel, or do you have a different take?
Yeah, no, I mean, even the title Elantris feels very, like, fantastical and almost whimsical. It's very much it very much reads like a fairy tale to some extent, or it has the premise of one. But you also get to see a lot of Sanderson's themes that recur in, like, different novels early on here. There's a lot of talk about religion, a lot about faith, optimism, and hope. All those themes are present here in a very, not necessarily superficial level, but a more, like, pure level, if that makes any sense. I mean, in Stormlight, there's a lot more nuances that go into these themes. It's a lot more rugged in terms of how rocky reality kind of is. Here, it's a lot more simple, and yet
It's a lot more black and white for the most part. I think you're right. Pure is a good way to say it.
but it makes for such a fun time and such a comforting time. I like the way you described it, comforting. It really is a comforting read. I felt like I was a little kid reading a fairy tale again. And that's a feeling I haven't been able to replicate in a while. The older you get, the more books you read, the edgier the material. This was a lot of fun. It was very refreshing, even though you do get to see a lot of those kind of problems that pop up in everyone's first novel. There's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of rough edges, like you said.
We compared this book, or at least you compared it because I hadn't read it at the time, to Mistborn, The Final Empire, the first Mistborn book. There were some significant comparisons that I think for the most part were very true. Because I would describe it this way. I felt that the meat of the book I enjoyed more for Elantris, but the ending I think is significantly better in Mistborn. And I think it's because of that comforting aspect, as well as some of the politicking that happens in this book feels a little bit more eloquent to an extent compared to Mistborn. But 100%, if you read Mistborn and you liked what was going on there, you'll definitely like this as well. And I mean, so I feel like our overall scores don't necessarily reflect what we're saying here, because it is Brandon Sanderson, and it's difficult not to judge it compared to his other books, but it's still an above average book. I mean, I would say that. So my overall score, just for people who still want that spoiler free, just what do you think experience, my overall score was a 6.95. It's cumulative from all of my different ratings that we'll get into here in the spoiler section, but a 6.95. I thought it was definitely better than average. I enjoyed my time. I was engaged the whole way, but it kind of fizzled out near the end for me. Nor what did you give it as like just your overall score?
Yeah, no, I also give it a 7, a relatively above average score, I guess. Sounds weird when you say it that way, but that's not an insult by any means. It's a 7.2 out of 10. That's my score for this book. I thought it was a great time. I thought it was a fun time. Was I particularly blown away? No, not necessarily. Of course, there are other books that do that. There are other books by Brandon Sanderson that do that. What this book did do, however, was um make me feel like a kid again. Um, reading a book that explored themes of like faith and optimism in such a pure way that was refreshing. Because I just haven't read something like that in a while. But at 7.2, a fun time. I would recommend this book. It's a great time, especially if you're looking for a comforting read. If you're dipping your toes into the Sanderson bibliography, this would be a great book to start. And yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into spoilers relatively soon. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is underrated. I don't hear this talked about ever, whenever people talk about Sanderson, and I think it should be. I haven't read all of his bibliography yet, but we're getting there. We're step by step.
Yeah, we will get there.
Are absolutely
We will
getting
get
there
for sure.
And I really did enjoy this. I mean, I post about it on social media. Like, I never hear about this book. Like, I hear about it from Sanderson saying it's his first published book. That's it. That's the most I hear about it. And this was an excellent time. Like, if this was my introduction to an author, I would 100% want to read more from him. And it definitely colors the experience going forward. And in the same way that I wish I would have read Mistborn before I read Stormlight, I wish I would have read this before I read any of the other books, because this would have already told me the type of author he is. I mean, he paints it on his chest. You know exactly what you're getting with his other novels, and it only gets better from here, but this is a fantastic start. That's my just overall pitch. I mean, if you're here listening to a spoiler-free review at first, you probably know you're going to like it. Just to be completely frank, if you're listening to this, you're probably going to like it. You clicked on a video, clicked on the podcast episode. Maybe you're following along with us. You're probably going to like this book if you're listening. That's me saying my piece.
I think we're back to echoing each other after the Red Rising episode, because I completely agree with what you just said. I wish I had read this first before Stormlight. I definitely wish I had held off on reading Stormlight until I had read this and Mistborn, and maybe some of his other works. I
I'm
think this is a
sorry.
great starting. No, that's okay.
It's my fault.
Stormlight is
I know.
amazing.
It is really good, man.
Elantris is a great place to start. I think it's a great place to start for fantasy in general. I also think if you've already read all his other works and you've only heard about this one, definitely check it out. You would be doing a disservice to yourself if you're not reading this book. It's a really good time. It's just a really good time. And you get to see Brandon Sanderson start off really strong already. And it's kind of amazing. Like, you already knowing where he goes from here is just kind of amazing to take in as you're reading this book. It's just such a great time for both people who are just reading Elantris for the first time, or reading Sanderson for the first time, or checking some of his older works. This is really just a good time. You should definitely check it out. Get your copy. Stop listening to this podcast. Get your book. Read it. Then come back because we're about to dive into spoilers.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I'm just feeling very relaxed today. I feel like this is a very chill episode because the book is kind of chill. Like, there's a few complications here or there, but to be honest, a few of the characters have it a little easy going. So Nor, where do you want to begin? Do we want to start with characters, plot, world? I mean, world might be a good place to start with this because
Yeah,
of
let's.
how intrinsic the world is to this entire story. So yeah, Nor, what did you think of the world?
I give the world a solid 7 out of 10. I thought it was magical right from the start. The prologue painted this beautiful picture for me, and I was like fully invested in this book right from the start. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a fun time. I can already picture Elantris. I thought about Elantris repeatedly when I would close the book and go to sleep. This is a perfect bedside book, by the way. Just
Yeah,
throwing that out there.
it
This was
really is.
great for this worked wonders for my sleep, and I don't mean that this book put me to sleep. I just mean that it eased me into sleep, and it made my dreams warm and fuzzy, and it was awesome. But so yeah, if you're looking for something to fall asleep to, read this book.
Yeah. What's funny is, so we're both I guess I'm still finishing it up. You already finished it. Reading Watchmen, the Watchmen comic, and I went from reading Elantris to fall asleep to like now I'm reading Watchmen, which if you haven't read it yet, go read it. It's incredible, but we're gonna talk about it next episode. And it's a very different sort of put you to sleep book. It's more of a close it and put it down and just go, okay, it's time for bed. And I mean, I'm with you. I definitely felt eased to sleep by Elantris, by the world. I mean, I also gave it a 7 out of 10. This is weird to say. It felt like a very small world. We hear about the Empire, about what are they called? What is the Empire called? The
The Fjorden.
the Fjorden, yes. You hear about the Fjorden Empire, yet you see them a little bit, but to be honest, the world feels quite small. Yet at the same time, I was more attached to this world than I was in Mistborn. And I
Yes.
want to. Do you agree with that? Because I
Yes.
think Elantris
Yes.
as a city felt so alive and specific in the architecture, the sludge, the slime, the cleaning it up, the just some of the characteristics of the world were far more like I liked obviously Alamancy a lot more than the magic here, but the world itself to me had a lot more character. What do you agree with that?
I was gonna say that as far as it pertains to the world itself, Elantris is. I like Elantris more than I did Mistborn, or I like this world more than I did the world of Mistborn. The magic
Yeah.
system, I think Mistborn does it significantly better. It's a lot more nuanced and more complex in its simplicity, if that makes sense. But here, the world just felt so alive, and like I said, right from the first page, the first page starts talking about the city of Elantris and its people, and you can picture it right away, and it just feels magical. Magical, I think, is the word that stuck with me after I was done with this book. I just keep thinking about Elantris as the place. Even the name itself kind of elicits that magical feeling, which apparently Sanderson wanted to name this book Adonis, and then he was told that Adonis, was already taken. It's a name. It's taken. So he came up with Elantris.
That's really funny. No,
Like, he
Elantris
finished
is a
the whole
great name.
book.
I agree.
He finished the whole book as in The Curse of Adonis or something like that.
I
But
mean, like I think Fantasy 101 is if you're going to have your story take place in another world or another fantastical situation, it needs to be relevant. It needs to, you can't just be like, I think it'd be neat if it just be in a different world. It needs to be part of the story in some sort of fashion, in a way that can't exist in the real world. And I mean, that's exactly what we see here. I mean, talking about this, we're talking about it like the world is not a 7 out of 10, but higher. So I think I mean, I don't know. I yeah, I'm looking at it now and like just remembering this is the map. If you're just listening, you can't see it. And I'm just remembering how the key one of the keys to the story is literally the shape of the map, is drawing that out onto the whatever, the magic system. You know, because the magic system is drawing, is right. You draw in the air and are connecting to the door. And literally the changing landscape needs to be reflected in the magic system and how you draw your characters. And that's super cool. That's just like really neat. And yeah, I don't know. I really connected with that. And it just is so integral, right? Like the story cannot take place without the world. And the same thing is, for Stormlight. That's where some elements of Mistborn, I don't want to spoil Mistborn, but there's mists. The mists are cool, but the actual like locations themselves I found to be pretty lackluster intentionally. It's part of the world, but still, I just felt a sense of history in this world and a sense of myth building as the story goes on. So I'm definitely inclined to agree with you. I think it's really, really good. Well, I mean, upon reflection, I said this right before our episode. We both gave it a kind of, I mean, not rough score, but above average. And I kept talking. I was like, I wonder if our opinions will increase through conversation. I think for world it did. I think for characters it might lower, but I think for world, I don't know. What do you think?
I will say, as you were talking about how like the world complements the story and the characters and the themes, and you mentioned the whole like, geographical element of the magic system, how it has to match the world. I kind of made this connection and I hadn't really made it before, or maybe I did, but I didn't think about it too much. I think it's really nice that at the very end, the way the magic is restored is by adding that fissure to the drawing, right? Like adding that imperfection, like embracing the imperfection of the whole is what makes you like or not, it's what restores you
Yeah,
essentially. I think that and that's a big theme, like embracing change and growth despite the adversities, kind of accepting the situation, like we are at the beginning of the novel, these people have no hope and there is no promise of a cure. Like they're not necessarily looking for a cure. Neither is Raoden, right? And they just accept that and they move forward. And I think that's a very powerful message. So in that sense, having the magic system and the world itself literally connect to that theme, I definitely think my score is also going to improve. It's going to go higher, I think, for a world, like you said.
that's a really cool connection. I didn't really consider that. The fact that, I mean, there are these tragedies, these chasms, these fissures that break through the earth, and it's only through acknowledging them and acknowledging not only the situation but the past that you can really take a step forward. That's really fascinating. I wonder if that was intentional or
I
if that's one of
yeah,
those things where
maybe.
he would just be like, yes, I definitely intended to, because
Yeah,
that's a
totally,
really good
totally.
interpretation. That's a really, really good interpretation. And I mean, it makes sense. Like it does connect exactly to the themes like you're talking about. And it could be anything. And it's a chasm, right? It's a fissure
Hmm.
that he has to strike through and alter the way he does things. And of course, there's the Sheod itself that is, I guess that's part of the world. But I mean, we're going to be talking about characters and plot here. Characters was definitely the weakest for me. Oh, it wasn't. The style was the weakest, but characters was the second weakest for me. And it's just extremely simple. There was a lot of simplicity. Raoden is like standard protagonist, and I I think what you said at the beginning was very true on this is a pure telling of optimism and the strength of faith and belief and in, toughing it out. I mean, in a positive way. But I wanted to see more negative consequences of his optimism. I wanted to see more of the downside of what that can bring. And we definitely see some of that with like Kelsier as an example in Mistborn. You can see an optimist who's also has some big flaws. And Raiden didn't really have any flaws. Like, I don't, he experienced pain, but he was a great leader. He was a really good guy. He had a lot of optimism. He always pushed forward, and he just was kind of like perfect and not in a, and don't get me wrong, very likable. I liked him a lot, and that's why it's not below average. Like, I liked the character. I looked forward. I mean, I texted you, and I look forward to reading about Roden. But I knew exactly what was going to happen. He had to win because he's the good guy, and he is the good guy. Hrathen was probably the most interesting because he made some morally gray decisions. He also had some humanizing moments. Character wise, is most interesting, not necessarily plot wise, but I liked his redemption. I thought it played well. I thought his like weird thing where he decided he loves Sereni was weird. That to me was a little out of left field and not exactly like portrayed well. I thought Deloff as a villain was awful. I really didn't like it. It did not work whatsoever because it I don't know, it just I saw that they were building him up to be a villain. Like I got that, and then he was too evil. He was just too evil, and I wasn't a huge fan of just how that progressed. It just wasn't interesting, I think is the best way to put it. It did all the things. It was safe, and I went, okay, there's the evil guy that we have to kill now, and okay. And Sereni, I think it's Sereni. She was probably one of my favorite characters. I really, really did like her. I really did. She was extremely competent, yet she had insecurities and she had problems. She would yell at people. And I liked what happened most with her character overall. There was the least amount of, it was the most interesting in how it ended, how it began, her choices. I mean, she is a good character, yet she had problems, but there also wasn't any really weird part like Hrathen actually being in love with Sereni. That's my very, very, as brief as I can make it, criticism, but also I liked all of the characters, so that's a good thing. But it was just simple. I don't know. What did you think? I know you gave it a tidge higher.
Yeah, and like we were talking earlier, like our scores might change. I think the more I think about it, the lower the score I would give. But I give it a 7 out of 10, right, for characters. I really enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the characters. I think I specifically enjoyed Sereni the most. I thought everybody else had the same problem of being a little too one-dimensional. They had everything, and, Ray Odin's plot was very simple. And yeah, he had his hardships, but they were largely external, or, internal in the sense that it was the curse itself. But it wasn't like any like necessarily like any self-doubt or any like actual character flaws. It was just his condition. I think that was like his biggest obstacle. He was too perfect. That is, I completely agree with you on that. He was way too optimistic. And like you, I would have also liked to see maybe them explore, you know, the dangers of, just 100% blind optimism or like unrelenting hope. Like there has to be like a more grounded counterbalance, perhaps, that would have been more interesting to see. Any complications that could have arose by this optimism would have been fun to see. The priest, what was his name?
Hrathen? Yeah, Hrathen.
Hrathen, yeah. I thought he was cool. I like his plot point. At first, I thought the premise was really interesting. The whole idea of having to convert a whole nation in a given set of time, or else they will be invaded. I thought pretty hardcore. That was pretty cool. Um, but I also agree with you. After a while, it kind of simmered down. It wasn't as interesting. The other guy, the really ardent follower of the faith who was like
D-Love.
yeah, he was really
Yeah.
hateful. I found that amusing and I found that entertaining to read. I didn't like necessarily not vibe with it, but I didn't also care for it too much. I thought it was fun. If anything, I thought it was amusing that Hrathen's plans kept being foiled by everybody around him. He started as like this really cool guy, and then he just started to lose his aura as the plot kept unfolding. So I thought that was interesting. A bold
No,
choice
I
for
did. I
sure.
did like that with him. With him, like not being as good at public speaking as Dilov, or him trying to send him away, and Dilov actually having the authority of everybody around him. It was really. I My favorite moment for Hrathen, and this is plot, but my favorite moment for him was this mixture where he believes that he can manufacture miracles, yet the success of those manufactured miracles proves the existence of his god. That was really fascinating. I really thought that was interesting, just because it would have been very easy to use that as a way to prove the inauthenticity of his faith. Yet it felt very realistic because I do think that, I mean, like, I can't bring up any examples. I don't know them off the top of my head, but manufactured miracles or stories that are created that are, yet they still have a legitimate impact. And I do believe that the people who made them probably didn't think, ha ha, I'm scheming, my God isn't real and I'm making everybody believe that he is. I'm so wicked. Like, I don't think realistically many of the people who invent lies like that are actually ardent believers and think that they're doing the right thing in order to get more people to believe. I think that was a very fascinating take that one was interesting. And I thought it was very satisfying that he faked the Sheod whenever he went into Elantris. I kind of suspected that was the case, that he had faked it with the chemicals. Like, I kind of knew that, and I knew it with Serene. It was happening, but it's still satisfying. It was satisfying to see how other characters reacted. I liked what you said though about Deloff. I was very satisfied throughout the middle point of the plot with how he interacted with everybody, and his hatefulness was really interesting then. It's more so how it resolved in the end that I didn't really like. It just to me was like a little, I just wanted a little bit more, a little bit more explanation or maybe nuance there. And I understood the plot twist with him actually being the one that was connected to the lady Elantrian or whatever that got sick and then you know offed herself by jumping off a cliff or whatever, jumping off the walls. I got it. He was just a little too like mustache twirling, I guess. I would just liked a little bit more. I don't know. But either way, I think what you said is good. It was very Raytheon was very entertaining, yet they could have done more in the middle section for him. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what about the side characters? What did you think about besides Deloff?
Yeah.
You have a lot of mostly for Serene. You also have Galadon, like a couple people for Raiden. I mean, I thought they were pretty strong. I thought actually they were stronger than most of the main characters. But what did you think? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it in the Mistborn episode, but I like the crew here more than I did the crew in Mistborn, I think.
Yeah.
They fit some of the same stereotypes in a way. They just feel a lot more alive in this one and a lot more like quirky in this book. And I guess that makes a little bit of sense given the, kind of whimsical fairy tale nature of this book. I just thought they had a lot more life in Elantris than they did in Mistborn. I liked them a lot more. I also agree with you. I think they were like ironically, surprisingly more nuanced than the protagonists, which I thought, I guess I didn't consider that as I was reading, but I started thinking about that later on, and especially right now that you're bringing it up, I'm like, yeah, you're right. They were a lot more peculiar, more real than the protagonist, the one-dimensional protagonist. Which, there were a lot of fun. I thought they were also part of what made the Serenity chapters more entertaining for me. All these like merchant noblemen gathering around following Serenity. It was a lot of fun. Those were my favorite chapters, but I also really liked the ones that followed Rayoden. I'm forgetting their names right now, but you have this
You
like
have
grump.
yeah, Galadon, then Karata, I believe. Karata.
Yeah, like
Those are the two like central ones for him.
I thought they were cool. I thought, especially with the female one, what's her name? Karata.
Karata, yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Like I was worried she was gonna be this one-dimensional villain, and she ended up being one of Rayoden's allies, and I thought that was very refreshing. Galadon was a lot of fun. I think it's always nice having someone who's kind of grumpy, a little depressed, be like slowly kind of pulled into the blind or the unrelenting optimistic side of life. I thought that was fun, and it was really really nice.
It was interesting though, because like I don't know. This to me is a problem of style. I gave style a 6 out of 10. It was my lowest score. There was a lot of just direct telling, like, I'm a pessimist. You're an optimist. You could tell because I said I'm a pessimist. Action wise, Galadon was still along for the ride the whole way. And I understand that's part of the infectious optimism to an extent. And I don't know. Most of this was a dialogue thing where characters would state their opinions pretty matter of factly, and there was a lot of like, "This is your character, this is my character," and just directly stating it. That to me was not great, and the dialogue to me was the biggest thing that gets a step up in future books. And I just wasn't a huge fan of that in this. However, I would say that he does have some pretty descriptions. I could very clearly visualize a lot of the places, not everywhere. Elantris I could visualize. That was the easiest thing for me to grab onto. But some of the other locations just weren't super memorable, like in my head, at least how he painted them. And I didn't feel a lot of deep emotions because sometimes they were, at least how he described them, were melodramatic to an extent, where it would go from 0 to 100. There was not much of a bridge. For Raiden, for example, he's happy and optimistic on the outside, yet on the inside he's like, I can't take any more of this. I'm gonna die any day. I'm like, okay, that's just a little too drastic of a jump for me that I think was mostly honestly a style problem. If he would have just altered the style to be a little bit more tactful, perhaps, that would have fixed it. Because it makes complete sense that he on the inside would be in a lot of pain, yet is showing himself to be this strong figure, right? The strong leader. And I just don't think he wrote it well. It's by no means unreadable. It's very like don't get me wrong, better than I can write. Like it's a very good story. And I know what's going on, and characters have good conversations. There is some depth. There is like I think that one of the things that really stood out to me in a way that I hated was this quote where he says it's one character talking to another. It's Sereni talking to, I forget who, somebody significant. I think the priest, maybe. I don't know. It says, remember, the past need not become our future as well. And that was like supposed to be some grand wisdom. And I just hated it. I was like, okay, that's just the most preachy, just not interesting thing. And it's obviously very hard not to compare, as we've talked about. But some of the exquisite dialogue between Hoyd and other characters are pieces that make the book. Some moments of true defiance and just these exclamations that we get in other books, not just Brandon Sanderson books, but other books in general, make like floor you, right? They floor you. They make you have chills. I never got chills because of the writing, but it is a fairy tale. It is a fairy tale, and I wonder to what extent that's a major limitation because of the style. So I know I'm definitely more critical of the style here, but it's because I noticed it, which is bad. You shouldn't notice the style.
Yeah, it's been almost a year since I've read this book, but I do remember texting you after maybe I read the first 2 pages of this book. I was like, you can tell right away that this is his like first published novel, at least. Like it's there's some very clear signs of like show, or sorry, there's some very clear signs of like telling and not actually showing certain things. And you're right, it is a fairy tale, and I'm sure there are some limitations with that. But you are right also. Like a lot of the problems with character, a lot of the problems with maybe even impact, I think have a lot to do or are heavily influenced by the kind of novice style and prose that he has here, especially when it comes to the dialogue. It felt very similar to like dialogue in Star Wars, where it felt it's very wooden, you know, like it's I can't believe that made it past the first draft. Then
I
again, I
don't
mean,
like sand.
then again, you're right though. You're right. He definitely writes better than I do. So who am I to complain? But you are right though.
Yeah.
Like it definitely bogs down a bit of the character, a bit of the plot, a bit of the impact even. I give it a 7 out of 10. I give style a 7 out of 10, and I give character a 7 out of 10. I think the more we are talking, and the more I remember what I read a year ago, the more I am inclined to give it like a 6.5 or a 6. Because you are right, that's definitely like a big glaring issue with this book. Which again, is it because it's a fairy tale? Is it because it's, his first novel? Or is it just, like specific to story? I'm not sure, but it definitely is. One of the downsides to this book, one of the critiques, I suppose.
I feel kind of bad because I feel like I'm taking a big fat stinky poo on the book a little bit because I really did enjoy it. Like this is mostly upon reflection.
Hey,
Hi, dog.
hey, it's
This is mostly
okay.
upon
I did the same for
reflection
Red
that
Rising. I liked Red Rising. Like I liked reading it. I
yeah,
still kind of give it a hard time.
I really did like reading it. And honestly, I really do think this is a very good book. But I mean, I do think the best thing about it was its impact. I mean, kind of as we've been talking about, there's a lot of depth in some of the takeaways from it. Oh my gosh. My wife let the dog in. If you see him in the background, Banjo's having a field day. But yeah, I think the impact of the book was probably the best. And impact to me does not only mean what philosophical lessons can we take from it, but also what experience do you get out of reading it. And we've talked plenty about how it made us feel. And the fact that we can identify and pinpoint the exact feeling that this book permeates speaks to how good the impact is. It knows what it's setting out to do, and it achieves that for the most part. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I didn't give it a 10 out of 10 because I do think that the ending soiled some of it because you get some of the tastes of a Sanderlanche, of the pace picking up, a lot of plot unfolding in quick succession. Yet it doesn't land the same as his other books. I mean, to me at least. But the impact and depth of thinking about what it means to experience chronic pain, right? I mean, like, what does it mean to experience pain that only gets worse? It's not going to get any better. I mean, it seems pretty debilitating. However, the kind of revelation almost that the secret is to find purpose. If you find purpose, you can deal with a lot. I really liked, and it was really touching in a comforting sort of way. I very much connected to that, and it very much motivated me, honestly, where I wanted to. I mean, I'm not struggling with depression, but it made me want to get out of bed and go do stuff and go live. And living is not a reflection of your status, but rather living is an active thing that you partake in. It's an activity. And that was a very lovely thing to say that I don't think we see enough, honestly, because we're used to some very, 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 very active protagonists doing a lot of stuff. And Raiden mostly gets other people to do stuff. And that's what he does. And it's very nice. It just made me feel good. So I don't know. Did you take away the same thing, or did you have another thing that you really focused on?
No, yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you brought this up because it's literally the only note I have for this episode. um, I mean, it's been a year, and I got you to read this book because I really wanted to talk about it, and I also just thought you should read this book. But one of the things that really stuck with me, it's like, yeah, some of the prose is a little basic, some of the plot is a little basic, and it's definitely a little too pure. But at the same time, it really the way it tackles like depression and this constant perpetual fatigue and tiredness was really nice. It was really comforting. And a- as far as like I know about depression and this type of thing, the one of the best ways to combat it, not cure it necessarily, because you can't really cure this, is to accept that you have it. It's a condition that you have. It's a feeling that you're feeling. It's all these things, right? You are feeling these things. Acknowledge those, accept them, and do something that motivates you. Do something that is engaging, purposeful, meaningful. Even if it's just getting out of bed and making your bed. Start small, keep going, and that's what Ray Odin does here. He starts helping the people of Elantris by just cleaning up the mess of the city, and that is one of the like best ways to start, and emphasis on start. Like you start by cleaning your room. If you're whether you have depression or you're just feeling depressed or you're having a moment of sadness, just do something. Take a walk. Engage in life. I like the way you said it. Like life is an action. Life is an act. You are doing things. I thought the way it's tackled in this book is really beautiful and it rings true. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Like, I don't necessarily have depression, but I do read a lot about it. Like that's what I kind of majored in, like psychology. I read about this type of thing. So drawing those parallels was really satisfying for me. These people of Elantris are like actively engaging in a lifestyle of avoidance and inaction, and the best way to combat that is by behavioral activation, which is just, doing things that matter. And it was done beautifully in this book in such a simple but effective manner.
I do have a question though, because there is something potentially problematic with the story, right? Because I think you're right that like the story's obviously about all this, you're doing nothing, you got to do something, you got to clean up. I literally clean up I'd never put the dots together on that. Literally just cleaning up, which, yeah, that's funny. But there's a kind of false promise to an extent, because I see you wrote down here in one of your notes, and I looked it up because I want to be like, I want to check if Brandon Sanderson actually intentionally based the Sheod off of chronic fatigue syndrome, and he did. But one of the keystones of something that's chronic is you kind of just have it, right, forever. Yeah, at the end of this book, they ascend, like all of the Elantrians become what they used to be, not gods, but godlike.
And
so
that
they
is
lose this, right? Like that's a kind of a false promise. Is that problematic to say to people, all you got to do is get up and clean your room and start living life, and then all of a sudden all of your problems are going to go away? And I don't know.
and I think you're absolutely right. And this is why I really, really love Stormlight and Kaladin's story. I think, if I remember correctly, my copy of Elantris has a foreword, because it was like the 10th anniversary edition or whatever. I'm not sure. It's been a year, but from what I remember about it, he started writing this book. He hadn't yet married his wife. They were still dating. They were still talking. And if I remember correctly, she does suffer from depression. So this was like his first true and real exposure to someone with such feelings. And so I think part of why this has such a happy, pure, like everything will be okay. They literally get cured of their depression and their chronic fatigue. I think it's just, a lot of it is he's a novice writer at this point, and he still doesn't fully grasp the complexities of this condition. Like it's not necessarily something you cure. It can go in remission, and even calling it remission is not accurate, because these are just it's not necessarily, it's not something like cancer. It's more of a feeling that permeates and lingers and then comes back in your darkest hours or even in your happy moments. It can come at any time. It has that like fairy tale vibe. It has a really happy ending, maybe too syrupy. It's definitely one of like its downsides. I think it doesn't necessarily stick the landing in a way that is as impactful as Kaladin's journey in Stormlight, which I think is a lot more nuanced and a lot more realistic and a
And
lot
obviously
more.
takes a lot more pages, like
Exactly. Right,
so
right.
that's part of it too. No, I definitely agree, and this is where there's a possible tension between the tone and the theme, because the tone is very fairy tale vibe, yet the theme does deal with some heavier issues. And I mean, that could be a possible issue that I think that the problem that the book could have done better, right?
Yeah,
The
I
tone
think
maybe should have reflected the theme a little bit more because the world does, but not necessarily how the book is written and that sort of whimsical vibe a little bit. I don't know.
think if I think a better alternative would have been if, by drawing the fishery in the Aeon, it didn't necessarily return them to that Elantrian status, but just return them back to human status. I think that would have been a lot more realistic. You're not like, it doesn't give you that. I don't know if it's like false hope, but like that idea of like, oh, now they're cured and they are back to being godly. Because I think it just brings them back to being human. But that's not what he went for at the end. So yeah, that's definitely one of the limitations with this book. One of the
I mean, but to be fair, like, I
drawbacks.
don't know how many people are going to read this book and be like, if I can only go to the store and get groceries, then I'll become God. Like, I don't, like, I don't,
Yeah,
I mean, when I say false promise, to what extent can that realistically be true? Because this is fantasy. It'd be different if this was set on Earth, right? It'd be different if this wasn't set in Elantris, if this wasn't set in a different world. So maybe one of the benefits of setting it in a different world is he can have these sort of leap and bounds, and it doesn't have to reflect real life. I mean, to an exact degree. But okay, so we should probably talk about a plot a little bit. I texted you when this happened. I felt very stupid because so I give it a 7 out of 10. It was good. I liked it. It was pretty straightforward. It's really the impact in the world that kind of made it for me, but the plot was fine. It was good. But at the end, whenever Raoden actually had the ascension level, like I did it, everybody, all the Elantrians turn into gods. I was like, wait, what? What? How? I didn't fully understand the
yeah.
power up.
Did you notice? Did you notice that there was also a well in this book?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that? Oh my gosh. Are they actually the door? No, with the wells. I did think the door was interesting, and the fact that you had like a fight between like, I mean, I don't know the names of the gods as clearly as we do in other books, but like you had one god who was obviously, I mean, they obviously had magic. They were doing sacrifice and then like making their
minute.
skin metal, right? There was like, so I mean, there's obviously some sort of god involved there, and it was based off of ambition. And I was like, okay. Whereas on the other side, for Elantris, you had a different god clearly involved. I mean, clearly. So I definitely see the Cosmere implications for kind of the battle that's going on this planet. I didn't know how to name it because we don't really get direct names for it as we do in
Yeah,
other
exactly.
series. But it was obviously there. At least to be clear, reading his other books, I was looking for it and saw it. And I'm getting to the point now. I'm getting to the point that I'm actually connecting a little bit more and more and more to the
Yeah,
Cosmere.
it's
And it's
fun.
kind of reaching
It's
Marvel
fun.
Cinematic Universe
It's
sort of
fun.
level where I'm like getting some of the ties. And I mean, like, I was watching a video and they're like, this is going to become super important in late stage Cosmere. Like, what does that even mean, bro? Are we getting the Avengers? Is it going to be like Kaladin?
And you still
like, what is
haven't
happening?
and you still haven't read Wind and Truth.
Listen, oh
you
my
you
gosh.
don't know. You
No,
don't know anything.
I'm reading so
You
many
don't know
books.
anything.
You know how many pages? I have the books on my shelf right over
You know
there.
you
I
know
have the
how
books. It's so big.
without getting into Stormlight yet again.
I feel like I need to read that just so we
The
can talk about
ending.
Stormlight because we talk about it so much.
The ending of that book left me so confused that it is only after reading Mistborn and Elantris that I'm like, oh, wait a minute. But anyway, yeah. The plot of Elantris itself, I also give it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was fun. I thought it was, I was gonna say cute, comforting. It was cool. I thought it was cute. I do think it was cute to some extent. Though the premises for each of the characters' plot lines, I thought were really compelling. They grabbed me. They hooked me right from the start.
Yes.
I do think there was like a bit of a murky middle, especially for the priest Crathan, definitely. And I do think the ending was too, fairy tale happy ending. Like, oh, okay, of course it's a happily ever after kind of thing, which I
But it
enjoyed
was
at
like,
the moment, and I thought it
it
was
was weird
nice.
because it was happily ever after, but then it was also like, yeah, but then there's the Empire who's still
Yeah,
out and
like
about. Like,
slurking.
that's, I don't know. I was like, it is super happily ever after. Yet it left the clear, like, I mean, we
Door
didn't get
open.
much of an explanation for this other magic system based on self-sacrifice. And they, like, pretty sure, dang, I forgot his name. What's his name? Come on.
Are you talking about the
Dilof.
mysteries?
Dilof. Yeah, they have the mysteries, and then they're like, Dilof has the strength of 50 men. It took 50 men in order for him to resist the magic. Like, that's crazy. And there was zero explanation, which it made me go like, okay, I gotta know. Like, there's gotta be a second. I'm not a big world guy, and I was definitely like, I gotta have some sort of answer with this. Like, this is
Yeah.
too clear cut for me to just like ignore it.
And I was
Too
reading
specific.
I was reading that he does plan to write a sequel at some point, but he's been saying that for years now. He just has
Yeah.
other worlds that he's writing about. I know there's a novella set in the world of Elantris, but I think it's in a different nation that I don't think it's mentioned in this book at all. But
Lame.
I could be wrong. I don't necessarily know
No
that
one
either.
no one cares about that. It needs to be like there was some good stuff though. I really did like I appreciated, I think I'd rather say, his building out of the Jindo culture or Duladel or basically the three places that we or sorry, four. You also have TO'd. Like the four different places in trying to build stereotypes in the cultures, and I actually kind of remember the stereotypes to an extent. That's good. That's very significant. I thought he did a really good job like building that out and these different people groups kind of converging in one place. That I thought was very interesting. But yeah, I agree. The plot was fine. It was good. It's fun.
There's one thing about the plot, one plot point that I'm not sure how I feel about. And it's the kid that is like rambling about the distance between this place and that place, and then he comes back. I don't know how I came across this. I think I just clicked on Sanderson's blog, like his Elantris notes, as I was reading that. He was like, yeah, I needed to figure out a way to make it satisfying so that, Ray Odin could actually get to that place without killing himself in the process. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not necessarily sure that worked. That felt a bit
Yeah,
too, like,
contrived. It was definitely
shoehorned. Yeah,
yeah. It was definitely like I definitely felt the author's hand
yeah. And
coming in and being like, fix that. No, I
that one took.
yeah. No, me too. I agree. I like pause because I was reading. I'm like, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sure,
Sure.
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 Keep reading.
It was at that point in the story. I'm like, okay. I mean, I think you could have just had one of the. You could have had been like, I was this many miles away or something. But for him to be like, it's this many steps to the dock. I was like, come
Steps,
on.
yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, it was his stride. They measured his stride and then had to multiply that quickly to get to the oh my gosh. Yeah, I couldn't, man. That was a little too much. That was a little
That one did take
No, I
me
agree.
out.
I agree. Oh man. I don't think it's less than 7. I think we're pretty spot on with that rating. I think
Yeah.
7 out of 10 is like I enjoyed it. I honestly wasn't really ever bored, even with Hrathen's kind of muddy middle. I was still like, yeah, let's go, man. Yeah, convert those people. Let's go. It was fun. Like I wanted to see what was gonna happen, but I wasn't invested in his plot line like I was in
Mm.
the others. I definitely wanted to see where Sereni would end up and how that would work out. Because I figured that she would end up with Raoden. That's like how the stories go, obviously. And I wanted to see how, right? And Raoden, this is I guess a plot problem. I was really not super satisfied by the moment of choosing to reveal himself because I was waiting for that. I wanted that tension to really simmer, and it did for a bit. Where Sereni didn't know who Spirit was, and Spirit lied, and then Sereni was like, "Ooh, let me look. That's not a real person. He's a liar." And then Raoden was like, "Actually, I'm Raoden." And then she was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I just wanted that to be a bit more of a dramatic reveal at some point, like in the end, a dramatic reveal. That would have been awesome. It would have been so cool if he teleports to the. I mean, the moment that he reveals it, like it was just lame. Like he goes in and is pretending to be this guy from Duladel, and he fences her, gets cut in the face, is super annoyed. But then he pulls her aside and is like, "By the way, I'm Spirit," and then reveals himself during a party or not a party, during the meeting whenever like the guards come in to kill them all, and he's like, "I'm actually Raoden," and it makes sense. Like, I got it. But I would have liked that if that was moved to the dock. Just imagine if he appears at the dock, golden because he's an Elantrian now, and she sees it's Raoden, like or I don't know if she'd recognize him, or like something happens there. That just would have, to me, elevated that moment a step further, because when it happened, it should be most significant for Sereni. That's who it should matter the most to. And it didn't really like land. It was more politically significant than emotionally. I don't know if that makes sense, because I wanted it to emotionally hit, but it hit for the plot, I guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. This had the seeds planted for such a fulfilling moment at the very end, at the climax. It had
Yeah.
the whole, like, oh, these two people are actually they were gonna get married together. They didn't know each other, but then this one died. This one got vanquished, right? And so now they meet each other, but they don't know, or one of them doesn't know that the other one is, the husband to be. It's like, oh, tension arises. Oh, maybe they have a fallout. They part ways. He goes back at the very end of the novel to save her. Like, it could have been a really rewarding moment in that sense. It doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
happen, but
Well, like, I think the problem to me also is the justification for why he doesn't reveal himself earlier is just not super emotionally revealed. Like, I would have preferred it if it dived a bit more into possibly the shame of it, like the shame of him being a prince, and that's part of the he's too perfect sort of thing. Is it's kind of interesting if he is ashamed to be a prince born of such status. I guess he's not born, he kind of is hoisted into such status by his father, who's a great character. We haven't really talked about him at all, but Iadon Iadon is a really good character who's really despicable and like awful. I loved it. But Raiden could have had pride, right? A certain pride. While he's trying to tell Elantrians that they should be okay with being who they are in their condition. It would have been interesting for him to not feel that way himself, in the sense of like, but I'm a prince and I'm stuck in this muck and I'm, locked behind these walls, and I feel ashamed to tell Sereni who I really am, because that's not the man that she fell in love with. And like, I don't have the money anymore. I don't have the status anymore. I mean nothing. That would have been super fascinating. Instead, it was mostly like, I just don't have the right moment, which it felt like it alluded to the fact that there was deeper things going on inside, but we never really got to explore that interiority, which goes to show, like, I think the novice, I think it's not amateur, it's novice. Amateurs, I think, a step lower, but that's a missed opportunity that would have been very complex and would have added to his character. But
I
man,
think you're
I don't know. I
right.
feel like we could go on this forever. It's a great,
We really
it
could.
has a lot of opportunity because a brilliant mind is behind it, but there's just barely missed the mark. Just barely missed the mark.
Barely.
I mean, okay, we got to go into our subjective rating. We both give it the same thing, and I think it's a very apt rating. It's not deserving of an ebook, right? It's
No,
not deserving
definitely
of a
not.
library book. It's also not deserving of a collector's edition. Nor what do we give it?
We gave it a paperback. It's a great
That's what it
read.
is.
Worth recommending. Even worse, I mean, I was gonna say even worth talking about. No, it's definitely worth talking about. Definitely worth talking about. But what I meant to say was even worth revisiting at some point, maybe. I think it's a great time. I would highly recommend this to anyone who is eager to dip their toes into Sanderson works, or fantasy, or just a good, comforting a bedside read. I think that's the best way I could pitch it.
Is it a mass market paperback, or is it like one of the nice big paperbacks?
That's
Well, yeah, that's the biggest distinction.
we're adding a whole other layer to this collage of
Wait,
subjectiveness.
is that yours? Do you have yours? Is that your?
Mine is a little bit
You got the fat one.
I got the
I got
fat
the
one.
tiny one.
You
You
got
got
the
the fat
tiny
one.
one. I really like this copy, so I think I'm gonna stick with this one.
No, I honestly think that yours is probably better. I have a soft spot, yet also a really hard spot for mass market paperbacks. I feel like we need to do a whole episode just on our opinions of like formatting, because there is something really nice about this size where I can put it anywhere. It's never intrusive, yet also at times it can feel just a little annoying to read because like the quality of the book itself is lower. And so it just is kind of annoying at times. I don't know. It's hard to open with your hands, especially whenever you get to like either the beginning, middle, or end of the book. And you're trying to
Yeah.
like, if I'm laying down reading and I have to like hold it open with just my thumb, it just is kind of difficult. And then my thumb hurts after a while. Not that a bigger copy would fix that, but it just feels more lopsided. I don't know
Yeah,
if I could
I will say though,
explanation.
I think you are right. There is like a charm to the mass paperback in the sense that this book feels, even the name, even the font feels like very like old fashioned. It feels like the type of book that you find at the library one day. You pick it up and you're like, wow, only I know about this book, and this is what makes it so special. You know what I mean? I don't know if you
Yeah,
ever had that
I do.
experience, but it's like, this is such a niche, underrated book that it fits the mass paperback format.
Ironically, I think that's kind of spot on. Of not that Brandon Sanderson is niche, but in his
Elantris
works,
in his
Elantris
works.
is niche. I do not hear enough people talking about this. If you listen to this point and you haven't read it yet, shame on you. Go read it. Just go read it.
Go read it.
And yeah, I think that is our summary of the day. Just go read it. Nora,
Yeah,
did you finish your drink?
always.
Yeah, I just finished it. It took me a while because that was a lot of bourbon. But I finished my drink because here on Novels and Nightcaps, make sure you read Watchmen for our next episode. We finish our drinks. Everybody have a good night.